Do you think the film business is fair?
The film industry. Well, do I think Hollywood is fair? No, but I don't think it has to be.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is that they have a right to run their operation as they see fit. There are consequences to that, obviously. Exclusivity. And the digital world, obviously, in the last 10 years has obviously changed. You went from, Blockbuster video to DVD by mail to streaming, and now production company. Same thing, one company. That's phase one. It's a transitional phase. We're in a transformational time. So I'm not there to tell Hollywood what to do and not to do. They're going to follow their model as they see fit. I think they have certain agendas that they want to get out there, and that's fine. They're welcome to do that. But I would believe that the only time in Hollywood that there was ever an opportunity for independent filmmakers to be mainstream was in a moment of crisis during the 60s and 70s because of television being in everyone's home, the decline of a box office era, because they had pretty much been doing the same stuff, right, all the time. It's the same. And so younger audiences were going in who they were trying to hit, and they didn't know who Cary Grant was. They just saw an old guy. And then we're kind of at that point now where the youth is so connected online. Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep and all those, I mean, they're kind of like, their legacy, right, iconic in terms of their brand and their value, but they don't mean anything to this younger generation. There's no relation to, they can go back and look at Forrest Gump, but they didn't watch Forrest Gump when they were a child and make that attachment to Tom Hanks as they were watching him grow up in front of our eyes on the screen. So they're going to deal with it however they deal with it. I think the fairness that people want in a system that is not fair, you can spend your time fighting against it, or you can spend that same motivation and time doing something to create your way. And you don't know where it'll end up. I mean, I would say, like, if I started like 10 years ago and where I am today with these 6 movies, I'm glad that I own the rights to all of them, because it hasn't even gotten out there to the, like, if I think in terms of the film industry and the windows and the, day and date and all that kind of, like, you get lost in all of that. It's what they have done to set the table. But if you're an entrepreneur and you're a filmmaker and you're an innovator and you're thinking about, like, what can I do? This system over here, for the most part, you got to have access and entry points and all sorts of things to get in and then move up, but you may not get to do your art. I mean, I want people, everybody should go for it, right? I'm telling everybody, go for it. But if it doesn't work, try something else. Go directly to the audience. Go directly to the communities that are talking about your issue. Create something that is different and unique from the other things that are being presented. Don't try to be the new hip, cool Tarantino, I mean, I understand that people have, like, they watch that and they want to imitate it.
Sure.
And they may agree with it too. It may be something like, I really love these movies, great. Take an action genre and maybe take it into a story that is not being covered, not being served, underserved people, underserved groups, underserved issues that are not even talked about in the mainstream, talked about in Hollywood. You'll stand out uniquely, maybe if you make enough money, possibly. But look at, and I want to say it, like, here's a perfect example, Westworld. Season 1 was phenomenal. I mean, that's really about the child rebelling against its abusers. I mean, if you want to go into the psychological stuff, is that, as they become more aware, conscious, free choice, free will, and basically throwing out their captors or killing them. And that's a really dark world, but that's kind of like the 1% versus the 99, if you will, or the powerful over the powerless. I mean, these are slaves, basically, for sex, for murder, okay. You have Black Mirror. And Black Mirror is talking about, where we could be going with technology and our humanity, and showing you the darker elements and kind of waking you up and going, you know what, that's not that far. Like, they're kind of this sci-fi, but in reality, are we really that far away? if in the observable realities that we see today. So I think that the responsibility really does not rely on the parent, Hollywood, to take care of you, as so much you have to become the adult, not to lead them, but to create your mark in this world. And if more people do that, then you create a little bit more of a balance where there's a lot of art going on over here and people are paying attention in mass. And maybe this group over here that's losing money on doing the same thing over and over again turns its head and goes, hey, like we did George Lucas. George Lucas, all of Steven Spielberg, all of those guys were a result of film school. Innovative, experimental film in film school. David Lynch.
Scorsese.
How can we, Scorsese, I mean, it just, and the list goes on. So when you look at it in those terms, everything is not going to always be the same as it always was. And when you have this disruptive technology, and it's not just talking about in some kind of vacuum, it's real application to connect with people and to be able to go directly to the people that want to hear what you have to say, because over here they have, everything kind of locked up. I mean, you can get in there. I'm not saying it's bad to try and get in and try to get your agent, your manager, and getting, like the pitch meeting and all that. I think that's fantastic. But if you're not getting that response that you want, then it's on you to say, I don't have to hate these people over here. I don't have to be anti-anything. It's not what this is about. It's not about tearing down the power structure. It's actually about creating your own power structure and amassing that with other people that are like-minded, because you can all find each other and start making films together. Start telling these stories. Start doing it with other people. That's how we're getting our success. We're doing it with others who are serving these communities and these groups of people who are ready to hear what we have to say. And to them, we're valuable because we're Hollywood from the outside. We're seen as Hollywood who is doing something about an issue that they care about, or a story or a point of view that they care about. It's up to us what we want to do. But we may need to emotionally detach ourselves from the idea of what is fair and what's not, and sitting there and, trying to expect them to change for me. No. It doesn't mean if they want to work with us, I'd love to talk to them, I'd love to work with them, but I'm talking about doing your work and that being the determining factor as to what's fair and what's not fair, and how that should affect whether or not you do a movie or tell this story, or if I have to conform in order to get in. Okay, fine, but I want to do art and I want to tell stories and I want to make movies, and I want people to enjoy those films. So if this group is not giving me the opportunity to do that, or doesn't just see that I'm of value to them at this particular stage of my career, then I'm going to go to the people who do.
Did you see the movie Quiz Show from 1994?
Long time ago, yeah.
It kind of reminds me of that. I mean, it's a weird analogy, but it's based on this John Turturro's character who's just excellent in the film, and he's like this scrappy guy from New York, and he knows all the answers to these quiz show questions, and every night or so these American families are glued to their television, but after a while they want to replace him.
Yeah.
And so Michael Stahlbarg is like it's just so great, but it's a great analogy of then they put the Ralph Fiennes, this like golden boy, and he, very bright guy, but there's something about him that they feel the American families are going to want to root for this guy. We got it. And so the movie is Turturro, and forgive me for not knowing the character's name, but fighting to keep getting back on that show, and it can't, and he really wants it, and the more they tell him no, he just goes crazy, and then basically they say he's crazy because he wants it so badly.
Right.
Where the Ralph Fiennes is just like this gentleman, and he makes the cover of Time, and so anyway, it's sort of this interesting look of like fairness, you know, and it turns out in the end, I don't want to give it away, but if you watch it, you see that even when he does wrong, he's still applauded because he's seen as this hero, and he's just painted as that.
Yeah.
And so it's a weird analogy, and I can't really put my finger on what I'm...
Destroying the illusion.
Okay, I guess that's it. Thank you. Okay.
But I mean, it essentially, we're in a, however you want to look at it, we're in a time where an election 2 years ago blew a hole in reality, and there's an opening to look on the outside for the first time. And all of this new information is coming in, and we, as filmmakers, need to look at the scope of information and assess its credibility and try to figure out to make sense of what we're seeing and hearing. Human trafficking was not on my radar at all. As for a social issue of a project that I was going to do something about, I've seen documentaries on it. I've seen 1 or 2 films that have covered it. But it was through that disruption of unpredictable things that came with all of this other information and a journey of learning to understand why we got here, where we are, what's actually going on in the world, not the ones that's presented to us. So you have a new reality that's kind of emerging for many people, new information that's coming into, you could call it political, really not, but social, cultural, worldwide global events, which we have time, if we want, to observe and look at through video, through articles, through people on Twitter talking about these issues, debating them in a public forum, conversations that haven't, it's like, it's all out there. It's a whole other world. It's a new frontier. And you can embrace it, or you can retreat to the old way. And what I'm saying is, it's not about you have to abandon your principles or anything like that. Actually, you become stronger in your resolve to find that there is so much more to this world out there than what we've been presented with. That we can do such great things. It gives me such great hope for humanity in the bigger and broader sense of the long term. When we talk about childcare, when we talk about what human trafficking is, what it does, its effects on children, long term, what child abuse has in its effects long term on children. And we get into this space, but it's not about taking a point of view, it's trying to learn through the experience of that information that's coming at you to make sense of it. And then once I discovered, after multiple things that were presented in front of me, fact-based, court, FBI, first count testimonials from people who had endured a lot of this stuff, there was no turning back. I had to or wanted to do something, and that was where I was putting my foot down and going in that direction. So I think it's if you're going to look at yourself as a person of importance, whether you do or not, it really doesn't matter. But if you see your job as a filmmaker as being a position of social, shaping social, telling social, stories about us. We can tell new stories. We can tell a lot of different stories. We can tell stories that haven't ever been told before, because today there is this enormous wealth of information out there, and there's a lot of BS too, but it's your job. If you want to see it as like I want to help, or I want to shape ideas, or I want to bring this voice out, it's our responsibility to find the truth in that. And that's about being a truthful filmmaker, as opposed to one that has just a certain idea about how we want the world, as in this group over here who have a certain agenda, want to do certain things. They have a total right to do it. But if I am forcing my point of view on them, and I'm basically throwing a temper tantrum because I'm not getting what I want, then in reality, that's only going to hurt me. And on top of that, all of the people who are being affected by this issue are then going to get further, it's going to be completely ignored, because now you're not doing anything because these people over here won't help you. When you know the truth and you have your own creativity and your own ideas, and you can look at this and go, man, this is something that's really important. I need to find a way to get out there and start telling this story.